I love painting on all kinds of surfaces and making them look multimedia style and different components, and really trying to make them look unique. There's some modeling pastes out there that are very textured and very thick paste that will dry and give you this effect as well that you can paint on. But you can also do like a faux crackle kind of look with the folk art medium, and it can be a lot of fun, and the colors are really endless. I did start off with a quick little sample board of some common dark colors that you can put in the background, and a lot of times they'll use a lighter color on top. But you can reverse this. You can play with this and put dark colors on top of light colors. You can put, it's really up to you how you want it to look, and how maybe antique and old-fashioned to more modern, and with some real kick to it. So I want to play around a little bit more on some cardstock with you, and also encourage you to do the same. If you're not sure how the combination is going to work for you, don't start painting on that item. Just grab some paper or open up an old cereal box, okay? This will be the very similar kind of, thickness that you're looking for to practice on. So then that way it's not going to, the paper won't warp on you. So if you just use cheap paper, it's not going to give you a nice practice area, because you're putting a couple coats of paint here. And so like I said, cereal boxes work wonderful for doing just quick little samples, or if you have some cardstock, which I have here for you, but I'm going to put this in your little e-pack. So that's why I like creating them right in front of you, so you can see the process. And then when you have your little e-pack that you want to just look at on the side, you're going to know exactly what you're looking at, because you heard me talking about it. So this is my little process that I'm liking to do to try to make things a little bit different, and try to help you with your different types of projects that you have on the go and how to utilize them. And it's endless. It really is. It's so much fun. Okay, so there's some little bit tricks, and you can see by this one here that it will depend on how thick or thin you apply your crackle medium, and also how thick and thin you apply your paint. Okay, so really play with all these different looks, okay, so that you know how to achieve them. So that if you're looking for the bigger cracks, or you want some real subtle tiny cracks, it really depends on how thick you put your medium on. Okay, so this is what we're going to play with, is the thickness of the crackle medium, and I'm also going to give you some examples of what that thick or thin paint is going to do on those different surfaces. Okay, so it really is a little bit of a trick to play with it, only because you want to know how to create the different effects. So I used actually a little bit of a medium dark blue here. It was called Ink Spot, if you use the folk art, or cobalt. Like, you want to use some of the darker of the shades if you can get away with. If you have a Parisian Blue, that's the darkest of the blues. Berry Wine is what I used here for a really dark red. And then I used a burnt umber for just like a natural wood kind of look underneath. And then I use black is a lot of my common color I use, because it's really the contrast that I'm looking for, that really, really dark and shadow. So black will look wonderful on the base of any color. You can pop up red or blue or teal, even yellow on top of black, if you want to give it a really sharp look. So remember that, it's really endless. But I also want to play with reverse as well with you. So I want to put some light colors down as well, and apply these dark colors on the light to really show you the effect as well on a reverse. All right, so we'll play around with some more different colors. Again, depending on how subtle you want it. If you want it, the greenscape is quite nice, or a medium gray on top of the black. Again, that'll give you a more subtle. If you want it a little bit more older looking, antique style, this is vintage white that I used on these examples. Okay, so it's not as stark and brand new looking. It's got that little bit more of a weathered look. If you don't have vintage white, all you have to do is dirty a white a little bit. You know, you can add just a tiny little bit of brown into your white, like I mean tiny little bit, just enough to dirty that white, and you'll create a really soft beigey type of white. If you want it to be a little bit more pink tones, then Cameo Blush or Light Flesh are nice options. You can even put, if you want to do something for a little girl's room or a little bit more on the feminine side, Apple Red is really nice and bright, but you will need 2 coats of this compared to the Engine Red. Okay, so Apple Red is a little bit of a translucent color, but it's got that pop that you're gonna want. Okay, and it's really pretty to do with the Cameo blush. And again, if you want to go a little bit lighter, this has got a little bit more peachy tone to it, then the Light Flesh is another nice option to do with the reds. All right, and if you really want to get funky, you can always put blue and yellow together. This is a blue peacock, so it's got that little bit of a teal look to it. Okay, so it's a little bit stronger than our regular teal. Okay, so if you don't have peacock and you have teal and you have cobalt blue, you can always mix those two together to create yourself a peacock. Okay, so it's just a little bit more darker, and or even just a tiny bit of Parisian blue in with the teal. Okay, that'll create your peacock. Right, so I always like to give you lots of ideas as well how to create colors, because you know there's just so many colors available, and a lot of times all we need is our basic 12, and you can create all the colors you need by those basic 12s. Alright, so all I have on my plate right now is the dark base colors that I want to play with, because it's going to take some time for everything to dry, so you really don't want to put out all of your colors all at the same time. So just the ones that you want to try for a base coat. So I have a variety here that I'm going to try and sandwich all together on one board here for you, just so you can see the color combinations. Okay, so when you're doing the crackle on a bigger surface, you definitely have to work really quickly if you don't want those separated lines like I have in one of my flower pots. The, you know, doing it in strokes, you'll see those individual strokes. So you definitely have to work consistently with it and get to know it a little bit. How much time do you have before you put another stroke in beside it? And if you don't have enough paint on your brush and you try to go over it twice, you'll see in this little example that I put it on and I slid about halfway through and I go, oh, I don't have enough paint to get all the way over there. So I went and tried to pick up a little bit more paint, and then I went in and I did it on purpose kind of in a way, because I just wanted to show you what happens to the paint if you do try to go over it twice while it's starting to crackle. Okay, because it happens very quickly. Right, so we're going to start with a variety of different colors here, and like I said, I wanted to show you quite a bit of different color combinations on a black, so we can do lighter on top of dark, right, as well as the other way around. So I do want to do a small little sections to put a couple funky colors here for you. So I am going to put a bit of a wide band of black here. Let's cover this all the way across here and see if I can do a nice thin line for you. We have lots of area to play with. And just give it a good coat. And then usually you'll only need one coat. But depending on what you're painting on, you know, you may want to put 2 coats down for your, give you nice straight lines here. You can always do stripes like this too on your items, right? And then get different effects. So I think I'm going to go with my blue next, because I'm working on wet paint here. And I'm going to try and give myself a little bit of a border here so I don't run into my black, which might happen. So just make sure you pick up quite a bit of paint on the corner of your brush and then slowly just glide it along to create that line. And it's best to let it dry when you're doing this, or you can even use a little bit of tape if you really want to do that. Yep, I'm just grazing over my black here just slightly. And you can always let this dry and fix that up. Alright, so let's move this blue down just a little bit. When you're getting used to painting on your background, also get used to what happens when you're covering. When you have your paintbrush straight up and down, you almost squeegee the paint right off. When you want to give a good coverage, lay it on its side as flat as you can, and then just lightly glaze over that area. Okay? And that will leave a thicker coating. Okay? Because when we, after the crackle is dry and we go and put our coat on, you want to start practicing now how to glaze that color on, so that you're getting a really nice coverage with the crackle, so that you don't have to go over it. So you can see that using cardstock is starting to curl already when it's wet. So you can always tape your paper onto your table as well if you want to have it not curl on you, and then let it dry, and then it won't move on you. And we're running out of room here for our light colors, so I want to put some of this light pinky color here. Nope. And I have a gradient going on here. Okay, and then we'll pop in just a smidgen of this white down here, so you can see some of these colors also on a light. Like I said, if you want more contrast, then definitely use the white, wicker white, or titanium white is another white that we have that will give you even a brighter white. Okay, so that gives us a nice range of colors to play around on. So I'll let this dry and I'll be back. Alright, so it's nice and dry now. If you wanted to speed up the process, you could just put a little bit of a warm blow dryer on it, not too hot, and just speed up the process a little bit. But when you want to do the crackle, And we want to put it on fairly quick, okay, because it does start to get tacky and dry if you take too long to get over it, and if you go over the areas too slowly, you know, you may do it too. So the quickest way to do it is just to put a good generous amount of medium, the Crackle medium, on there, and then just glaze it over your whole area, okay? And you want to leave it really glazy, like water texture. You don't want to see the brush strokes through it, okay? So I want to make sure I have enough to go over that area. And I'm stealing a little bit from my puddles over here. And it could be that, you know, I know experience too how much medium we're going to need. But I may run out as I'm getting over here. So I'm just going to glide a little bit more product just over there to finish off the side. So that's what I suggest, is to get it on there really nice and thick. So you see I went over and I touched that area. I've already left some streaky spots in there. So you definitely want to try and keep it a glazed effect. And if you want your cracks to be really, really tiny, then, you know, sure, you know, put it on a little bit thinner and you'll have a smaller crack. But I can control the cracks by the amount of paint that I put on here too. So I want to make sure that I have a good consistent coat that is going to be my good base of Crackle to get that nice big cracks, okay? So we're definitely going to let this dry, and patience is a virtue, unfortunately. And I really do suggest that, you know, this is an opportunity for you to go have lunch or something, or put this away and expect to, you know, do it after dinner or something like that. And because you do have some drying time, all right? It's not going to change on you. If you left it days and days and days, maybe, but I mean, a few hours or even the next day, you still have time to do your Crackle, you know, effect on top of this, okay? So it's not going to change anything. And in fact, I've even actually put some on my plate before and forgot about it, and it dried, and then I went and go put paint on top of it to paint something one day, and I thought, what's happening to my paint? Like, so it started doing funny things on my plate, because I forgot that there was some dry Crackle on my plate. So yeah, it's kind of cool product. You do have some time, and it cleans up pretty easy with soap and water, so you can just go and rinse your brush now with some soap and water and just let this dry. Okay. Okay, it's almost dry, but just a little bit more patience. Can you see how it just kind of gathered here a little bit? It started to curl, so it was a little heavy-handed right here. There's a little bit of a heavy drip there. So that's okay, just don't touch it. All right, so you'll see that there's little hints of thick spots that might not be dry yet, so just wait a little bit longer. Okay, so it's all nice and dry now. And in fact, I ended up having dinner and got sidetracked, and I even left this overnight. So it is definitely good and dry, and you will see the effects of it when it happens to be that, you know, you've left your Crackle medium on there and you just didn't get back to it yet, okay? This is just the little experiment stage here, and we just want to play around and get inspired with color. So I have pulled out every single brush that I've owned just so that I can speed the process up. So I've got a lot of different colors that I want to play with, and I don't want to be worrying about cleaning my brush and in between. So right, so I've got a whack of different little colors here. I'm even actually going to play with a little bit of magenta, I think, too. I think that we should play a little bit with that. So my plate, I just cleaned out all the leftover paint so I don't waste anything. And then now I'm going to just try and pop in some colors in similar areas. So we had the teal out, and I want to play with that again. We can put that right over on its spot. And I definitely want to play with some yellow. I gotta make my spots a little bit smaller here. And I also want to play around with some citrus green. Oh yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to play and try and see how many colors I can get on this sheet here. And then I also want to have the natural look with, but I'm using a greenscape, or you can use a medium gray. The greenscape is very grayish. It might have a tiny little bit of green coolness to it, hence the name greenscape. And then definitely we got to get some black in there. And then we want a little bit of our cameo blush. I've already showed you some light colors, so I'm trying to stay away from those. And I want to play around with some Parisian Blue. I'm usually a big purple nut, but for some reason I'm just going to stick with the Parisian Blue. But dioxin purple would be beautiful in this too. So yeah, let's, and the yellow that I'm using is actually a moon yellow, so it's really strong and bright, okay, in a warm way, where the daffodil, if you want to compare them, is a lot brighter, okay? So I chose to use the moon yellow in this experiment. I'm looking for a real rich color, because I think it'll complement really nicely with the peacock. All right, so what are we going to try first? Woohoo! All right, so again, I'm working with dry brushes because I want, the paint is pretty good. It's not too thick, all right, and it's coming out really nicely. There is a chance that sometimes some colors do come out really thick, so I would pre-soften it a little bit with a little bit of floating medium if you think that your paints are too thick, okay, because you can't put 2 coats over this. You just can't. You got to get it on and lay it on really thick, and not go back and touch it again. So this is where it gets a little scary sometimes. All right, so let's start at the top here, and I'm going to try and focus on a couple different areas here, but I'm going to try and focus on just where do I want to pop. Let's start with this moon yellow, just because it just seems like so bright and intense. So I want to pick up my paint, okay, on one side of my brush, okay, and really load that brush up so that you're really working that paint right up to the bridge of that ferrule, okay. So you really don't need a lot of paint on the one side of your brush. Where you need it is on the other side of that brush, okay. So you don't need a big huge blob, right, but you do need to have that little scoop that's going to carry you all the way across in a long stretch if you're doing a project like all in one color, okay. But I'm only going to do tiny little tests, and on your cardboards later, after you figure out what color that you want to use, then definitely do another practice area where you're really stretching out those strokes so that you can see how far can I get and how is it going to blend together when I'm starting to put it all together. Okay, so for right now, like I said, you don't need a hell of a lot. You just need that little bit just to do that little pop of a, let's see what this color does. Okay, so I'll try and work my way up here so we have lots of room. And you want to make sure, now I've got some streaks in there, but I can't go over that again, right? Now I really popped that on heavy. So let's see what that does just for experiments. Okay, so we need to learn what's too much and what's not enough. And too much obviously is just going to take a whole lot longer to dry. Okay, so let's just leave that there. And let's see what this yellow, I might need a bit more, looks like on the blue. Okay, so just a little spot, just a test spot. Okay. And we can even see what it looks like over here. Okay. And you can test it, you can go over it, but you gotta really glaze it. Okay, I was trying to be really quick there. All right, and I was able to just keep going. But if I was doing a big stretch and I was trying to lay it on again thick, you know there was going to be trouble. All right, but right now I'm only doing a small little spot. Okay, and yeah, I think that's good for yellow. All right, so when we're done with our colors, you know, just while you have your brush here with that color, I suggest pop that color back into your bottle while you have it, okay? So then that way your brush isn't waterlogged. Because if you throw your brush in the water and then come back and do this, then you gotta really rinse out your brush. So right now, while we are done with the yellow, let's just get it off of our plate so we can save it for another day. All right, next brush. Let's try green. Okay. Oh, this one here is crispy. So I do gotta, when you wash them, I squish them. If you've seen my hacks, I have a hack there that shows you how to take care of your brush. And that's exactly what happens, is it gets crispy. Especially you leave a tiny little bit of soap residue in there, which is not a bad thing because it helps to put a crisp on there. And then if you're carrying your brushes around, it almost gives it an extra protection. You'll see I played around with most of them. There's another one that's pretty crispy. Okay, so I let it dry, I squish it, and then when you're ready to paint, all you have to do is just fluff it up a little bit. Alright, so let's try this green on the black. Okay, so I'm trying to hold this down and just do a tiny, tiny little bit of a spot. Okay, that's a nice coverage. Okay. Let's try a little bit of green on the blue. Okay. And this is the teal with the... Okay, and I don't think it would look too complimentary to do the apple red and green, but see if we can get a little tiny test if you're really funky and you want to do something with there's complementary colors and then there's the colors that work against each other. And if you've jumped on my course #1, I do have all the information there. Let's see if we can get one little green on a white. There we go. Okay, so that's it for our green. Now let's try our greenscape. I really want to see what that looks like on the black. Now if you're left-handed, work for this way, that way, so that way you're not putting your hand inside your paint. Because I know I have southpaws that are joining me. Okay. Just for experiments, I'm just going to lay a very light coat. Like I just kind of, and I didn't even finish it all. Alright, so you'll see in the example what that might have done. Okay, and let's see what gray looks like on our peacock. And let's see, again, you're going to see some just clash and some won't work very nice. Let's try some of this gray on a white. Give us if we have enough. Let's see what it looks like on the pink. Let's carry that over. Okay, put that a little bit on the red. And that's enough for that one. And let's try our teal. Okay, so if I have more room, maybe I will end up pulling some more colors out. I'm making these little spots so small. Really want to put this on thick. Okay, so again, if you're going all the way across, there's just no way that you're going to be able to double coat this. Like I said, we're going to really see what happens when it's too thick. Look how long it's taken for that yellow to change. let's try a little bit of this. That'll be a very subtle. Okay, so it really depends on how much contrast you want. Okay, and that's obviously not going to work on each other. But, you know, you can always play. A little bit more different colors. Okay, and you can see there I have a dry spot. I'm going to leave that. You'll see that, you know, it gives you a different effect when you have some skimpiness too. Okay, so yes, I'm going to pop that in my brush there and pop it into my bottle again. You know, every little bit counts these days, you know. Resources are hard to find, especially up here in Canada. We're running out of paint everywhere. And it takes even longer for me to get orders in from the States now. Alrighty, so let's try some of this Parisian Blue. Okay, so I really don't think it's going to do much on the black. Okay, so you're going to see the Parisian Blue as a background is going to be very similar to black. Right? So it's so dark. No spreading room. Tight corners here. Right? Oh yeah, let's pop more of that Parisian Blue. And if you like purple and teals together, go for it. You know, like I said, I'm just trying to stay with more neutral tones, and I know there's a lot of people that love blues in their homes. My mother's a big blue nut. Everything's blue for her. Okay. So I'm going to play around with black here too, but you'll see the difference between the Parisian Blue. Okay. A little bigger now because I have more room. Alright, so yeah, that's looking nice. Okay, and I'm definitely running out of this color, so I definitely want to make sure I pop that back in there. Alright, so we have our, let's try some of this light pink. Okay, so if you don't have this color, you can always make it with your magenta or red. Okay, just keep adding white to it until you're happy with it. But if you are doing a big project, then make sure you make enough color combination to do that whole project so that you have enough paint. And I've had some empty white bottles that only have a tiny bit of paint left, and there's like nothing left into it. You can hardly get it out, but there's still enough trace of white in there that if you pop some red into an old white bottle and give it a really good shake, and maybe even if you have a barbecue skewer in there or a long toothpick that you can get in there and try to stir it around a little bit, and then you can make yourself, you know, a little bit amount that way you have backup, and you can always try to add to it if you feel like you ran out. But you know, that's another idea with your old white bottles. When they get emptied, don't throw them out because they could be mixing bottles if you want to make a big amount. Alright, so let's try that pink. Like I said, I want to concentrate. Which side do I have my paint on, right? Make sure you lay that side down. Okay. Well, that's a little bit thick. Let's just try to move that. So these are just some really fun experiments, right? Okay, so you're going to see that it's... I want to put black on there for sure. So let's not waste that area. We're not even going to bother. I don't think that's a very popular contrast. But this is where I wanted to try that pink. Right, and if you want a real subtle pink with white. Alright, so yeah, that's good for the light pink. And light colors will look very similar on dark colors. And then some magenta. That'll be a nice contrast. Will this work together? I don't know. Maybe in polka dots. Those would be beautiful colors together for polka dots. I want to put black there. Okay, and obviously this isn't going to be a lot of contrast. But this is where I want that magenta. And, well, I don't think we're going to have much room for black on here. All right. Well, let's see if we can carry this magenta over here a little bit bigger so you can maybe get a trace of white under there. Are we having fun yet? I am. All right, let's try black. Black or licorice. Licorice is very similar to true black. I really can't see the difference of them. I'm not sure why they carry two different colors of black like that, because to be honest, they really don't have a lot of contrast. Alright, so let's see. That's our black. And a big glop at the end there. Alright. And then we definitely want to put some black here, so you'll see the difference between Parisian Blue and my brush is too big here. Let's get the small brush out. That little area. Okay, and then we're gonna go a big area so that you can see the white and pink all together there. Woohoo! We have a couple spots left. What can we try? Oh, I wish this was live so you guys can help me decide. Alright, so there's the black. Now what do we have that we can put? Orange? This is not the true orange. This is called begonia. I don't have the true orange with me. This is one of the newer colors, and there is an outdoor series paint out there as well, but they didn't have this particular color in any other of their formulations. So I do a lot of outside painting, and this is great for canvas too. So if you're going to use a sealer, you can use any paint, but this does have sealer in it because it's an outdoor product. Okay, so I've got 16 here, so maybe I can get some smaller brushes, maybe smaller samples. Okay, so let's try this one over here. It's like a very soft muted orange. Okay, thick spot there. Alright, so just one little test dot of that one, actually. We'll just try and see what else we have. And should we pull purple out? Yes, yes, yes. I think violet pansy. It's got that brightness to it that I think might look really cool on black. Okay. And so do little spots like that at a time and keep moving it over. You know, that could be another option for you know, just doing little spots at a time and then just move over, make sure that you're happy with it. Okay. Let's see what this would look like on peacock. On the teal. You know, we all love purple and teal together. I do have room here, so let's try it. Again, those would be great polka dot colors together. And I have one little spot dot down here. Am I forgetting anything? It's purple now. Okay. Oh yes, we want to do the red. Keep them all right here so I can write them down when I'm done my videoing. And where's that? Apple red. There we go. Okay, apple red is just a lot brighter. The only bad thing about apple red is that it is translucent. So you could play around with your engine red as well. But I'm hoping that, again, you're laying this on really thickly with a dry brush. Right, so it's not watered down at all. Okay. Because normally when we do our stroke work, we sometimes recommend you to dip your brush into water first, right? But in this case, we don't. I want to really lay that on good there. There's our apple red. And we were going to do this over here, but we don't have room now. Let's see if we can lay a little bit of red there. And complementary colors. Let's see. Let's try some of this peacock on the teal. And kind of contrasting. And there's even a lime green that will look really cool too. Or happy green, it's a lot brighter. Green right here. So it's got more white in it than the lime green. Okay. So it's a little bit brighter, lighter. And so we have some room here. A tiny titch over here. Okay, so see the difference between the two greens. If we can do some craziness over here. Okay. Kind of overlapped my pink there, but that's okay. A little bit bigger. We have one little tiny room on the red. What can we put there? We have lots of black there. Red and orange could be another option. If you have the true orange, you want to be a little bit brighter. We never did get any yellow on there. Squeeze a little bit of yellow on my brush. Like how I do things sometimes. Alright, there's a little yellow. Oh, too much. Okay, so I'm just going to try and squeegee that off a little tiny bit. Thin it out. And that light pink already. Okay, we'll put a little bit of vintage white. Alright. I can find the clean spot on my plate to pick it up. Okay, so tiny little bit of vintage white on this. Oh. Okay. I did do it already in the berry wine. Okay, so you can see where the medium is still wet looking. and this is the paint, and I didn't put the medium all over this sheet. I just put it right in the middle where I wanted to do my little practice. And then, so you can see that the medium is there. So if you are going to paint over your crackle now, like say you're going to put a big flower on here, any areas that are not covered in paint, your flower is going to crackle on you. Okay, it's really important to grab some sealer and give it a spray, all right? Unless you don't mind your flowers cracking too, okay? Because this, like I said, it has time. It'll continue to crackle. So any of those little areas that are still shiny that I didn't put any paint on, they still have potential to crackle. Okay, so remember, give it a good spray, let it dry, and then you can do your design on top of the crackle, and then it won't crack. Okay, that's the only tricks. Like I said, there is a few tricks about the crackle that you need to be aware of. All right, so we're just gonna let this all gently dry, and when it's all dry, I'll come back and give you a little preview again of how it's looking. Okay, so you can see that there's still some areas that are really thick. Okay, those two areas are taking forever to do their thing. And we're going to also see, is there a too much paint that now it won't crack? Okay, so like I said, this is an experiment, and I wanted to show you all the possibilities that could go wrong, will go wrong, you know, in this little practice area, so then that way you guys can see the effects and what happens before you start playing. Okay, because I put my medium on really thick. See how big those cracks are? Okay, so you can also see I whisked off here, so these cracks are going to be smaller than this side. Okay, you can see when I do them a little bit thinner, okay, these ones are a little bit thinner applications. So I hope you like the little crackle exercise. Alrighty, so I let it dry a little bit, and then these thick areas here, I definitely, I tried to use a blow dryer on them just to see if I can get them to move, but you're going to see right away that it happens pretty quickly, alright? And if you've given it a couple minutes and nothing's happened to it, nothing's going to happen to it. You won't be able to do much to it unless you actually sand this all down and repaint your base coat and start all over with the whole process. So it's really important for you to practice now, okay? Play around and really see what you can get away with. All right, there's a happy medium amount of paint. So you can see my first glob was very thick, and then as I spread it out, you can see that it was getting thinner, and that's where I got my success, right? I love this purple one on the black. You can definitely see that if I was going to pick a green with this peacock, I would probably definitely pick the happy green. I like that a lot nicer with the peacock, a little bit brighter. So this is why it's so important to experiment and see if you have a variety of colors, and you know, try them and see how they work for you. Again, if you're torn between the two yellows, then just do a little patch and then just compare the two yellows and see which one you like, right? Just like I did with the greens. You can see I would never put the greenscape on apple red. I don't think that's very complimentary at all. But again, it's just to show you, and if you don't play with colors, you don't know how they are going to make you feel when you look at them. And that's what it is. It's how you feel when you look at them. That it's going to give you joy, or you're going to go, ooh, That's not very nice. And it happens from the heart. It really does. You just kind of look at something and it will tell you right away what kind of pop and feel. And every color does mean something else. Like yellow is definitely our cherry color, right? And bravery, and red is our true love, and pink is passion, and blue and purple are more royal colors, you know. So it really depends on what kind of feel do you want your piece to have, is all by which colors you tend to gravitate to, and who you're creating them for too. So I hope you like this little painting hack of sorts. You know, it's just using another product to manipulate the paint, so it just definitely might make another little painting hack that might be helpful for you. Hello, and thanks for joining me today. We're going to have a lot of fun with some terracotta flower pots. Okay, we are going to get them ready for the summer. It's a spring day and it's raining outside, and I can't really get out in my garden. So I thought, what can I do to these pots to spruce them up and maybe have a little variety on my deck of different sizes. So I thought I'd pull out at least two of them for now. And these two are totally different. So that's why I'd like to share with you some reasons why I want to choose different styles and what we can do with them. And there's so many ideas. We don't only have to put flowers in them. And if you have yourself a little handy lazy Susan, then this is definitely going to be very handy for you today. And I'm going to show you how I use that too. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do, if they're brand new, they shouldn't be too dirty, so you don't have to worry about scrubbing them too much. You know, you can give them a light wash, but mostly you want to take the stickers off the bottoms of them, and you can just use some hot soapy water and a little scrubby pad, and that'll get the sticker off for you. But if you're having some sticky residue that just won't come off, just spray it with a little bit of alcohol and use a paper towel. So you can see it dries really quickly, so you got to be pretty quick. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll use my finger to kind of loosen it up a little bit and then wipe it down, and then that'll get rid of all that sticky residue. So we're really not caring about any what it looks like, because we're going to paint over this anyways, but we just want to make sure that that sticky residue is off. And you want to make sure that you leave these to dry for quite a long time, because they do hold their moisture. You can feel that this one is just a little tiny bit damp, and it's a little bit cold because it's still got some moisture in there. So these are some of the problems that we have with painting on these guys, is because the moisture will transfer through from the inside in your wet soil to the outside. And there has been, you know, stories in the past where people have used just cheap paint and they have started to peel off, and you don't want all that hard work that you're going to put into this not to last for you, okay? So like I do suggest that you do wait for these to dry really well before you start. Okay. So first of all, I just want to show you a little bit of a varathane that I like to use. And this is my go-to one that I always buy. And it seems to work on anything. I will spray it over canvases. I will spray it over, you know, anything that I want to have a little bit more waterproof resistant, especially for outdoor items. Okay, so if you've made anything, a little sign for outside or whatever, but if it's something that is hanging on, you know, inside your porch, it's outside, but it's kind of hidden a little bit from the elements, it's not going to be as bad as something that is really outside, getting all that wind and rain and snow if you're up here in Canada like we are. So I found that this product here definitely does give that little extra insurance. So if you do use multi-surface paint or even the enamel paints, okay, we have enamel paints that are just made for glass, you can use this for your terracotta pots as well. And the nice thing about this is that it's got sealer in it already. And if you haven't taken any of my other courses before, I share a lot about the different styles of paint that folk art carries, and you can see that there is 3 different kinds. So many times people don't realize that, and they end up picking up the regular acrylic, which is very comparable to if you bought any of the paints from a dollar store, even a cheap one. These ones will not have the sealer in them, and they dry to a satin, very matte kind of consistency. Okay. Then these ones, the multi-surface ones, have some sealer in it, and it'll dry to a semi-gloss. The enamels have even more sealer in them, okay? And they will definitely dry to a more glossy finish. So if you're not using any varathane, then you definitely want to make sure that you're using a paint with the sealers in them. And you're going to want to put at least 2 coats to get a good base coat of color onto your item or onto your pot so that you give it a really good seal. Okay, so I have done it before with just plain multi-surface paint, and they survived wonderful with this particular series of paint. Folk art is my #1 choice of paint, and I don't even bother buying too much of the other ones anymore. I just stick to the multi-surface. And then if I am doing a lot of wine glasses or glass vases, then I do want that little extra insurance, and I will buy the enamels for those. So those are your 2 choices for paint. And like I said, if you want to give it that little extra sealer, 2 light coats are always better than 1 thick coat. Okay, so also keep that in mind when you're painting or spraying and or finishing after, and you want to give it that little extra sealer. Okay, depending on your item, it does come in a can as well. You can buy the small little sample cans, and you can buy a big gallon, obviously, if you're doing your deck. But, you know, if it's going to protect my deck with people walking on it, then I feel confident that this is going to be the best durable coating that I can possibly get for my items. Alrighty, so for today's project, we're only going to concentrate on one of them, but I just did want to share with you some, you know, different kinds of pots, and it's really up to you if you want to do one with a saucer or one that's just simple and with no hole in it. Like I said, you can use these for lots of things. You can put peanuts in there and put a bottom on as a top. Okay, I have a few examples I'm going to show you here now. So these ones, I just used some really good glue, and I glued little wooden balls on the tops of them, so then that way I have like little lids for my pots. Okay, so you don't always have to use them as a flower pot, right? They work really nice. They can sit inside each other. You can put them this way so they look more like a lid, but then they slide, right? So I have found that to be a very good idea that way. But if you put them in this way, right, and keep them in a sheltered area so that water's not getting all in here from the rain or whatever, you know, you can keep them in your little shed or on your porch if you have an overhang, and then throw peanuts out to your squirrels or chipmunks or birdseed, or, you know, lots of little ideas. You can make them into a gift basket, right? You're making a flower pot for Mother's Day or whatever occasion that you want to give a gift away for, and then you can pile a bunch of stuff inside it and make it a fruit basket inside and put some fresh fruit in there, and or whatever, maybe some beauty needs, you know, some nice lotions and oils and nail buffers and some beautifying products, you know, you can always put that in there, and then they have the products in there and a nice flower pot to use for their plants. Right, so try to be a little bit inventive and creative with your gift giving, and it's always really nice to have something that's homemade and made with love from somebody that you know, and give them away. And like I said, a lot of fun you can have with them. All right, it's color deciding time. If you saw, I made a little painting hack on Crackle experiments. And it's like, wow, what color do I do? I just don't know. I don't know. I use the teal and the black, and our home, I'm making this for our home, for this one here anyways. And, and I'm looking at the way the teal and the black, or the teal and the Parisian blue. I'm really torn, and I'm really loving the warmth of the Parisian blue compared to the black. And I just painted a big, huge wall unit, a china cabinet in that navy. So I'm thinking when I put some colors beside my decor, I have also an aqua. And I'm thinking a little bit brighter with that Parisian blue is what I'm going to do. So I narrowed it down. So we want to start with 2 good coats of our base color. All right. And because I want to play around with it a little bit and do a 2-tone effect on this one, what I'm going to do is do 2 different colors. All right. So I'm going to start with actually my Parisian blue. So I'll put quite a bit there. And what I suggest you do, if you don't have a Lazy Susan, I'm telling you, they make life so easy. You'll be able to see in the view here. I'll change the view a little bit for you. If you hear some noise in the background, my neighbors are tearing apart their pool and rebuilding it and putting a whole new deck. So there's going to be lots of noise in the next little while. But when I'm painting, it's wonderful. You know, you can sit here with your Lazy Susan and just keep spinning and spinning and spinning, especially when you're doing pots like this. I love having my little Lazy Susan. And like I said, just let it dry and then come back to it, because if you keep going over your areas again and again, you just wipe off the paint after a while. So the first coat, definitely just try to put a thin coat on. I used to actually have one of those little rubber mats that you can get at the dollar store there to slip, non-slip little mats, and it all got beat up and I ended up throwing it out. So next time I'm at the dollar store, I want to pick myself up a little skid free mat to put on my little Lazy Susan. So you can see I went over and made a little bit of a mess. So just get some clean water and a clean brush. Okay, and try to rinse that off. Okay, if you have a sponge, you can always just wet it down and then sponge it off, just so that it's not so dark. Okay, I have dirty water here, so it's not giving me a good clean, but I know the paint's going to cover that no problem. Okay, so if you do have a little oops, just try to rinse it off as quick as you can, because you can see how fast it absorbs. Okay, and then try to go a little slower so that you're just getting right underneath that rim. So when that's all done, you can just let that dry, and then you can flip it over to do the top part. But what I want to do is actually, while I have it upside down, it's very easy for me to kind of go neat with this little smaller brush. You can control it and get a nice thin line all the way underneath. Okay, so when you do your second coat, you know, you can always go in, okay, and fix things. If you see, it was easier for me to take a clean brush and then just rinse that off to get that smooth line. If you feel like you want to put some tape on there, you can, but if you let your bottom color dry and then you go and you do your top color, it'll be really easy to erase it. Okay, so if you don't get that nice smooth line, just dampen another brush and just go right over it and just rinse it so that you get that nice clean line. Sometimes I find it's just easier and quicker just to get it in there and then do a quick cleanup. Because sometimes it's hard to get it right in that corner. And it just doesn't want to get in there clean. And I got to push on it, and then when you push on it that little bit too much, then you end up making a mess, right? So I just always found it easier and quicker just to get it in there, not be afraid of the paint. And then when I flip it over, then I can do the inside of the pot and do the rest of the rim. Okay, so that's all we're doing right now, is just getting that underside done while that bottom is drying really well. Sometimes I go back and forth on the chisel this way too to try to get it in there, not make a mess, but I don't know, maybe I like erasing. And like I said, the darker color is going to fix that and go over it in the second coat, no problem. So this is what I want to do, is make sure that this is good. And I'll do 2 coats of the inside and the rim first, right? And then I'll go in and I'll do my second coat of the bottom last. Just so that, you know, because when you flip it over, you got to wait for the bottom to dry again and around the rim again, and you really want to make sure that it's really good and dry before you put your second coat on there. And if it's any tackiness at all to it, then you'll end up removing some of that paint by accident, because it'll stick to your Lazy Susan or your towel. And you know, sometimes I'll put, oops, that's a big one. This is what happens when you talk and paint at the same time. Sometimes I'll put a piece of wax paper down too to protect, to give it a really good clean surface, because a towel can be fuzzy, right, and leave little fuzzies on your paint. So if it's damp or tacky at all, you know, you don't want to be turning it over quite yet. So I get this done quick, and then I know that I have a little bit of time to go have a little snack or lunch, or you know, clean up my brushes and Alright, we can move down a little bit more. Just wisp it in there so you have no hard line. And then you can just fade in the rest of the color after. Dry paint there, make sure that you get it out. Kind of flick it in there. Start giving it some coverage. And you can see, like I said, the lazy Susan just makes your life so much easier. Yeah, we're going to do a little reverse technique here. So I'm going to use the bottom color with the light, and then I'm going to use the top color with the dark. So if you're not got good coverage right here in the middle, don't worry about it, because you're going to end up covering that with the Crackle in a different color, and it's, you know, it's not going to be a big deal if you don't have 100% coverage because of the effect that we're going to do. But if you weren't going to do the Crackle, then definitely, you know, I could put 2-3 coats on here, but I'm just going to put 2, just because if there is any spaces of the dark showing, I want to make sure that they are really nice and dark. Okay, we're back. We're nice and dry. It's not sticky, tacky at all, okay? So gotta remember, make sure it's good and dry before you flip it over. All right, so now you can see that I can easily do the inside. All right, make sure I get coverage. Now, if you knew that you were going to use this for a plant only, you don't need to paint all the whole inside. Figure out how much, you know, where would your soil stop. You know, it's not going to go any lower than this rim, right? You might have a little bit showing here and there, right? You want to have lots of soil, so you're not going to see a lot of paint. So you don't need to cover it. Then you're only going to paint around the rim to about here and do your effect around the inside so that you can see it everywhere. If you're going to use this pot in your bathroom, throw a bunch of brushes in there, or, you know, all your hair ties, or, you know, like, there's so many cute ideas you can do with these pots, okay? So if you know that it's going to be used for something else, then definitely, you know, paint the whole inside so that you can see that it's nicely finished. Remember, though, that when you're doing these kind of projects, do not put food directly on this area. You wouldn't want to eat off of this, okay? If you're going to give this as a gift basket, you're going to put lots of nice frilly paper down at the bottom, and then you're going to put your fruit on top of that clean paper. You're not going to put it beside any kind of chemical paint or anything like that, okay? So just want to give you that little bit of disclaimer there, that please, if you're going to use this as a gift basket and you're putting food in there, do not put food directly on the, like, if it's a banana, or you're going to peel it, you know. But if you're going to put anything on there, I just want to give you a little disclaimer that, you know, when you're painting on any kind of dishes, you cannot use them as serving dishes. Okay, so then you can just go around your edges and put that in there. This is the area that's going to get the most handling. So you do want to make sure that you got a good coat on there. And, you know, going over this edge again is like a second coat now. Right, so you do want to get under that rim a bit more again. So when we flip the pot upside down again, that's my plan, is to tackle that area first. Getting really good coverage there now. Yeah, this is why I like the Lazy Susan, because it really helps you flip that brush in and out and wisp it in and out. And because it's a round surface and your hand is going sideways, you're flick it off very easy. If you're painting on a very flat surface, you have to actually move your hand a little bit more. But with a round surface like this and Lazy Susan, I'm just like flip, 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 and getting that coverage nice and even and consistent. That looks really nice there. I'm definitely going to let that dry and come back and do a second coat. Well, you know, I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't have put the light blue in there, but it's given one good coat anyways to get a seal in there. And I'm going to leave the inside there with just that one coat. Okay, I'm quite happy with putting one coat of that color there for a base. All right, but when we do the crackle, okay, so this is going to change things now. So we're going to be putting the dark over the light. We're going to have to make sure that we're really neat about it on the inside. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to only put the crackle medium only around the edge. But then I'm going to go and give this another coat inside with my Parisian Blue, and then we'll make it all the same color, so then it just slowly comes out and starts crackling. Okay, so yeah, I got a little excited putting my teal color everywhere there, but again, if you weren't doing crackle, then go ahead. And at the end of the day, it's your design, and if you're copying me all the way, then this is, you know, my madness in the process. So like I said, if you want to just keep this all plain on the top, you can, and just crackle the bottom. Or if you want to keep the bottom all plain and just crackle the top, you know, there's so many different ways of doing the crackle designs, and it's truly really up to you. Okay, so through the process, I do like to give you lots of options and kind of see if I can neaten that up a little bit more. Alrighty, so we're going to start to put our crackle medium on. And what I like to do sometimes is just plop her on there good, right? Put a good amount on there. Right? And sometimes when I'm putting on glazes and finishes with a brush, I like to use more of a sable style brush. And I do have actually one of my large pointed oval wash brushes that I use for watercolors, right? I don't want to rag it, but I'm going to wash this with soap and water right away, so it'll be fine. But it's really nice and soft, and it's not going to leave those harder streaky lines in there. Okay, so I'm going to use this as, you can put it on a plate if you want, but I'm going to start here at the bottom, and I'm just going to go over my edge just a little bit, just to do around the edge so that I don't have to worry about seeing underneath. And I'm going to do the other part with the crackle later, okay, with the around the inside and out of the the rim. Okay, so you can go around and give this a good coat. Okay, not too thick, not too thin, but you know, with this nice softer brush, it's definitely laying on a lot nicer. Okay. Just watch out for thick edges, any kind of rimmy thick areas. And quickly just go around, because it does dry fairly quick where it starts to get tacky, right? It's tacky pretty quickly. So again, this is just another benefit of this Lazy Susan, is that it really allows me to move quickly and keep spinning it and not have to worry about touching it. Okay, so we're spreading that out a little bit, and give our sides a really quick check to make sure that it's nice and smooth, you know, really quickly. You can see some areas that are a little bit drier than others, or heavier than others. I can use my light as it shines off like a mirror, and you can almost see. And the bottom I'm not too worried about doing that. You know, you don't even have to do the crackle at the bottom if you don't want to. So just watch if there's any drippy marks, okay? So you can kind of see it settling and doing its thing. So if you see any kind of areas that are, you know, potentially wanting to drip on you, just kind of hit them really quickly and keep an eye on it right now, you know, while it's still fresh. You can smooth it out. But again, it's going to be like a thick, kind of globby look anyways when we start to apply our crackle, okay? So I'm not sure if you can see any of the thicker areas that I went too thick. You know, you're going to see those blobby areas on your finished design anyways, and it does add to the effect. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I tend to play around too much. Okay, so we're going to let this dry really good before I flip it over. Okay, if you do want to blow dry it to speed up the process a little bit, just make sure that you're staying very far away from it on a low speed and not too hot. So turn your heat setting down so it's like a warm breeze kind of. And again, the nice thing about the Lazy Susan is you just keep spinning it, so then that way you don't have any direct heat on anywhere in particular, and you keep shaking your blow dryer, you know, so that you're really fanning out that air, and then just keep spinning it, and then slowly it'll dry a little bit quicker. Okay, so if it feels tacky at all, you know, I have you know, the inclination to just wait. And if you're afraid of flipping it over, you know, you could make this a 2-day project, and you know, just do the one side, let it dry overnight, and then come over the next morning, apply a little bit of the crackle medium, and then finish the top and the inside tomorrow. Okay, so you don't have to rush and get it all done in one day. You could break it up and multitask with other projects or practicing, and just keep coming back to it and playing with it to get that really good results. Because I know in the past, in my own mistakes, that I've rushed it and I tried to flip it over, and you know, I ended up peeling off some stuff that wasn't quite dry yet. So just make sure that it's really good and dry before you play with it and touch it. Okay, so it's pretty tacky right now still, and you know, I'm glad that I did the crackle on the bottom here. You're not going to see it here anyways, but again, if you're not used to it, you've never done it before, this is like your little practice spot. So you can just play around on here and, you know, see how much paint you really need to get your effect. And then by the time you come around the edge, you've got it pretty much figured out. And then you're going to just work your way down to this area, and then obviously this is where you want it to be really good. All right, time to have some fun. So we're going to pick up some paint, load it up really good, okay? But you really don't need paint on both sides of your brush, okay? Only the one side, okay? So you pick it up so that you've got one side heavier paint than the other, okay? Not too heavy, because if it's too heavy, it won't crack at all, right? So you need that happy medium. So like I said, on the bottom of the bucket, nobody's really going to see, so it's a good place to start. And because this is a circle, you're gonna have to kind of be a little bit creative in your first stroke. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to place down, spin my brush around so that I can end in like a half circle shape. So then my second stroke will be a little bit more straighter and straighter, and then I'll have to reverse that other stroke and to finish. Okay, so it's a good chance to practice. Okay, so very very carefully, we're going to just kind of swoop that in. And I'm already feeling resistance, but you know what? I'm going to leave that little bit of dragginess in there because I think it's going to just add to the effect as well. Okay, don't kill yourself. Okay, so I have this little pile here and I have this little pile. I'm just going to squeegee that right up. If you hold your brush straight up and down, you can squeegee. Okay, if you're really flat, then you're just picking up over the whole brush. Okay, so a little bit of a squeegee, right? So that you have a little bit of a puddle, right? And let's try that again, and then try to go a little bit, follow that shape all the way in there. Okay, so I went a little bit straighter there. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, we went over an old area. And just very, very carefully. And then again, I'm trying to get right in there. And if you miss any spots, you can always just kind of whisk them in there, or just wait for it to dry, and then just try to add a little bit of paint in there. Okay. And then when we go around the sides here now, we can just go very lightly, little brush strokes at a time to just feather that in around the sides. Okay. So that you're not really seeing the last stroke. Okay, so this is where you want to practice a little bit about blending that in there. So you can see that little bit last stroke, right? So I'm going to try to give it some regularity. So you can see the half circle shape going on a little bit. But that's okay. Like I said, this is just a little practice area. Nobody's really going to see this. All right. And just let it go. I'm going to go and work on our side. So we got to be a little bit slower now. You know, you got to focus and really kind of lay that paint on smooth. Right. Back up my camera here a little bit. Okay, so you can see how I just whisked that in there. So try just not to go too heavy with your stroke. Okay, so you're just kind of whisking that in there, and then you can push and then wisp out. I have a little bit of a glob there, so I just want to take that out of there. Okay, a little bit of wisp. That way you don't see that stroke. Okay, so it is a little bit about playing. Okay, it's quite easy though if you just take your time. A bit more paint as you need it. You don't have to rush. This is dry. This will wait for you, right? See how you're doing. And it depends on if you're right-handed or left-handed. I'm right-handed, but I'm almost feeling like I need to go into the last stroke. Okay, so you're just gonna try and whisk that in there and just have fun with it. Slowly work your way over. Okay. You can see that some of my first pots that I did, you know, it was just I didn't play enough yet. I just kind of tried to piece it on there, but now I'm trying to play a little bit more with a little bit of regularity. Trying not to go over my previous stroke. Okay, trying to be a little bit less strokey in this one. I'm a little bit heavy on that one, so I'm hoping that it's not going to be too heavy. Okay, so I just kind of a little bit of a blobby paint there. leave that alone. It can be a neat effect. So this is a little bit of a thinner application. Not too thick. Like I said, there's a happy medium. And it's okay to have some randomness, some heavy areas, thinner areas. And a little bit more paint. I'm almost at the bottom of this one. But I do have backup. There. Now I'm just going to turn my brush sideways here a little bit. I get in that rim. Flick a little bit of color in there. Okay, so you could leave it just all like this if you wanted to. Okay, so it blends it right into the top color. So many ideas. It's so easy to get sidetracked and go, oh, let's do this, let's do that. But yeah, you can see that covered pretty good. Go a little slower for you. I'm playing around with my camera trying to give you the best views of the process. So I'm going to let that dry really good. Have any that we can pop back in here. Alright, so it's nice and dry now. I can kind of tip it over to show you. I'm loving some of these big cracks. Wow. So those are definitely the areas I was a tiny bit thicker. You can see how I was a little bit thinner. Alright. Wow, loving that. Love, 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 love. I love that they're all different. Love it. And you know what? What this looks like on top here, with the little circles kind of showing, it shows that this was handmade. And this is where you're going to put your signature and your name and the date of your piece, and before you seal it, and it'll always be there. You know, that little bit of, you know, it shows that it was definitely handmade. So we can flip it over and do the other side. But what I want to do actually first is add a little bit of crackle medium around the edge, and this around the edge of it on the bottom side of it, before we carry on and flip it over. So I just want to dry my brush out as much as possible there, because I put it in water for a little while and washed it, so it's still a little bit damp. So make sure that your brush is really good and dry. And just to make things a little bit neater this time, I decided I would pop a little of that crackle medium on a plate. And I'm just gonna very carefully go over the bottom again. It won't hurt it if it has a second coat, but I just want to make sure that if I missed any areas that I got them. And then start working it down. the angle of it, you can kind of see a little bit better, I guess, from upside down. And all the way around. It really is better to do it in stages and, you know, let this dry. So then that way you can touch it and handle it at the bottom. And then just a little bit more crackle there around the edge. That it blends it in. I ended up with some paint there. It was wet on my Lazy Susan, but that's okay. I'm not worried. We're gonna put that navy right over this now. And get right around the top. And I'm gonna just try and focus a neat line just around the brim. Okay. Okay if it's not too neat. Okay. And just watch your drips. Feather that out. Okay, we'll let that dry. So if you remember, we did the crackle on the bottom upside down here because it's just easier to do it with that little bit of a gradient going on the side. So I've got my big 3/4 brush here again. But what I'm going to try and do very carefully is just go around the edge and just graze around it to try and give that little bit of a lip underneath some color. I'm just kind of loading the corner of my brush every time, just so that I can just use just that edge. Okay. Work that around neat as I can. Working around this area, get that done very carefully. Alright, so got that little brim done there. And now we're just going to very carefully try and get this as much as we can go down, but still leave some space where you're not hitting your surface here, okay? So very carefully lay that color on. Okay. I'm trying to pick it up a little bit random here, a little bit thicker. Feather it in there. If you overlap just a tiny bit on your underside, nobody's going to really see that too much. Oh, really try not to go over that area twice. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now we can flip it over. Okay, so there's no strong rim there, right? He's just kind of feathered it in. Okay, so now you should be able to get the sides here and just slightly over the top of the rim, right? Very carefully. Push that out. Blends into. Dries pretty quick on top of this medium. Make sure that it's, I'm gonna go over it, make sure it's still really wet. And tip yourself over so that you can really lay it on flat. It's such a dark color, I'm hoping that you guys can see what's going on here. I'm just gonna graze over the top. Very quickly, okay? And now I just want to make sure there's no globs going over the edge. So I'm just gonna hit that area. On the inside now. Slowly. Sure that there's no globs. Okay, so now I'm gonna load my brush up really good. Okay, because I want to make sure that this last stroke here is going to be my last one all around this edge. So very, very carefully. Yeah, I got more paint on that side. I don't want a big glob either. So make sure there's no big glob that's going to be a hard line. In fact, I'm going to let this area dry. And I'm going to go down and I'm just going to start adding some more dark color down here. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so this is going to take a good 2 coats to get it nice and dark inside. And you can always just stop right here and let this all dry. And then I'm going to go and do a second coat. And then it'll be really good and dark. And then when I do my last coat around here, it'll blend it all together. Okay. Alrighty, so we got it all second coated in there, so it looks nice and dark in there. So where did we leave off? We were right about there. And then now we can feather that in slightly. And if it goes blobby, then you can always feather it down and it's not going to hurt anything, right? Just a little bit more paint. And real hard to not touch it too much. Get any. Okay, and And that's about it. If you go over any areas, let's go up a little bit higher, darken that a little bit more, feather it right in there. No, that's not dry yet, so now you can see it happen right in front of your eyes. Alrighty, there's my crackle pot. So you can see some areas that I kind of was doing it a little bit too quick, and I ended up hitting some areas that weren't dry yet, and I ended up going over it twice. You can see that there's some strong swipey areas that aren't cracking, but they kind of look textured and modeled, so you know, not a big deal. Right. So there's some areas that I really like, and just a couple areas I don't like on the inside. Oh, don't go over them twice if you don't have to. Right? But I definitely did a much better on the outside than I did on the inside. So I'm going to give this all a nice spray now and decide what kind of flower or decoration that would look nice on this. Any of my pattern packs that you get on my website can be used for this as well. You just may have to downsize your brushes. You want to just put a rim of daisies around the top here. Maybe the top you didn't like as much, you know, maybe there's more areas that you'd like to cover, and this turned out really nice. You want to leave this, you know, the way it is, and then just add a little bit of an ivy around the top would be really pretty too. So I'm going to leave the rest of the decision up to you. While I'm spinning it around, I do see some little areas that I might have made a mess with. You can always just take a liner brush, right, and just kind of very thinly clean up that line. A little bit in spots if you feel like you need it, or you know, the other way around, wherever you feel like you have a little oopsie there. I'll just kind of feather that in there. Wipe off your brush and just make sure it's not globby. That'll make it look a little neater. I did hit it a couple times there, which I'm sure you will too. Okay. But it almost looks like part of the cracks here too, right? So don't worry too much. Okay. Probably just leave that. You know, like I said, it just looks like where the paint separated. If it looks like a glob, then definitely maybe neaten it up a bit. But yeah, I hope you like this little crackle. And there's so many different color opportunities. And I hope that you'll share your Crackle projects with the group and show me what you put on it. If you need some more help with the one stroke technique to put some flowers on, please feel free to check out all of my courses that I have on my website, because I have 5 that are part of the intro. So if you've never done it before, those 5 courses are going to show you everything you need to do to learn how to double load your brush and make a bunch of different strokes, different ways of pressing down and pushing and bumping up on your chisel, and also some, if you're feeling comfortable with it already and you just want to advance some more different techniques, then I have some more individual courses that are available now as well for pansies and tulips, and a few more on their way coming very shortly. I definitely love that it's big cracks down here and smaller cracks up here. Oops. I think I definitely will add some daisies or something to this. I think I need something simple and something white that'll pop right out.